Hi everyone, welcome back. I appreciate you being here. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name's Dennis, and this is how my 8-year marriage ended over breakfast, with a smirk and a lie, and how one hidden letter changed everything I thought I knew a week later. When I think back to the early days of my marriage to my wife, Joan, I remember how everything seemed to fall into place so perfectly. I married Joan during what I thought was the best year of my life. I was working as an aeronautical engineer, a dream I had chased since I was a kid, staying up late reading books about planes and sketching blueprints in the corners of my notebooks. The pay was excellent, and with the housing and travel allowances that came with it, we didn't have to worry about much. Life was smooth, stable, and predictable in the best kind of way. Joan was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Beautiful, warm, and supportive initially. After getting married, she said she didn't want to work. I told her it was fine. I was earning more than enough to cover both of us comfortably, and I figured that if she was happy staying home, managing the household, or even just doing her own thing, then that was a win for both of us. I loved her. And when you love someone, especially early in a marriage, you don't count the cost of what you give. You just give and do anything to keep them happy. I made sure she never lacked anything. If she wanted to travel, whether it was a weekend getaway with her friends or a full-blown vacation with her family, I funded it without hesitation. We also go on both short and long vacations whenever I am off work. There was no limit to what she could do. New handbags, spa days, dinners out with her cousins, birthday surprises for her siblings she never even needed to ask twice. I didn't mind. I felt proud that I could provide for her like that. It made me feel like a real man, like I was doing right by my wife. She expresses her gratitude whenever I make things happen, which is pretty often. We agreed to delay having children. There wasn't pressure from either of us. We both said we wanted to enjoy each other first, travel a bit, and build a stronger foundation. And honestly, those early years felt good. We laughed a lot. We had routines. I'd come home to her waiting with dinner, or sometimes we'd order in and stay up watching shows until midnight. I thought we had built something real, something that could last. Financially, we were steady. Emotionally, I believed we were in sync. Looking back now, I realize how easy it is to mistake routine for happiness. For a while, things in our marriage were steady. Joan liked the stability, and I took pride in being the one who provided it. But everything shifted the year my team got assigned a high-stakes project, something that was supposed to be a huge step forward for my career. We were developing a key safety component for a new line of commercial airplanes. But if it fails, the consequences are catastrophic. My team had done dozens of these before, but this one had tighter deadlines, more moving parts, and more pressure from higher-ups. Long after we were done, a call came in. A flight had been forced into an emergency landing due to a system failure. Investigators traced the fault back to our component. One tiny detail, one missed calculation in our specs, was enough to cause the malfunction. No one died, thank God, but the damage was done. Lawsuits started rolling in. The airline pulled out of its contract with our company, and the fallout was brutal. Even though I didn't personally design that part, I had signed off on it. I was the lead. The board didn't waste time. They called an emergency meeting, brought in legal, and before I could finish my second cup of coffee that morning, I was let go. Still, I told myself I could bounce back. I had a cushion. Savings I'd built over the years, carefully managed by a financial advisor I trusted. I wasn't happy about the job loss, but I figured we'd be all right. I just needed some time. But that illusion fell apart just a few days later. I called the advisor to go over the accounts and start a withdrawal, and the line went dead. Emails bounced back. His office number was redirected to a generic voicemail. So I drove down to the place myself and found the doors locked. It only took a few conversations with a lawyer to learn the truth. He had been mismanaging client funds for years, investing recklessly, taking out loans in our names, and worst of all, not paying taxes. Everything was gone, not just the savings. I was left with debt I didn't even know existed. We were in financial ruin. I remember feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My mind kept spinning with one question. How am I going to tell Joan? When I finally got home and broke the news, she didn't say much. Just a long stare, like I was some stranger who had just messed up her life. Then she said, "So what now?" Out of annoyance. From that moment on, it was like a wall went up between us overnight. We still shared the same routines, the same roof, but the warmth, the partnership, the support I thought we had vanished. And for the first time in years, I started to wonder if I really knew the woman I married. Everything started falling apart faster than I could hold it together. Right after the betrayal, I hired a lawyer, someone sharp, experienced, and honestly more expensive than I could afford at the time. I was set on suing the financial manager who scammed us. I wanted justice, but I quickly learned that justice doesn't come quickly or cheaply. The guy had a team of lawyers who seemed to specialize in stalling, deflecting blame, and making everything as complicated as possible. One minute, they claimed he didn't have control over the funds. Next, they said I was aware of the risk. It felt like I was being made out to be the fool, like I was the one on trial. Every court date was another blow, not just legally, but emotionally. The legal fees were stacking up, and progress was moving at the speed of a snail on ice. While all that dragged on, I was trying to find another job. I had nearly 15 years of experience, a solid track record, and glowing references. But I was getting rejection after rejection. Companies said I was overqualified, or that they were moving in a different direction. I'd never felt more disposable in my life. The silence between interviews got louder. The bills didn't stop. At home, things were just as bad. Joan, my wife, had shifted into someone I barely recognized. Every conversation turned into her asking, "What are you doing all day?" or "When will you get a real job again?" She wasn't yelling, but the disappointment in her voice hit harder. I could tell she was comparing our life now to what we had before. Honestly, I was too. I missed the quiet pride of providing for us. I missed the way we used to sit down together and laugh without tension hanging in the room like thick smoke. But that life felt like a memory someone else lived. By the third month, I had no choice. I accepted a job that paid nearly half of what I used to make. It wasn't a bad job, it just wasn't for me. The hours were long, the work was hard, and the paycheck barely stretched to cover the essentials we were used to in our past life. It definitely wasn't enough to keep up with the mortgage on our big, beautiful house, the house we'd bought during better times. And no matter how hard I worked, it felt like I was treading water in a pool that just kept getting deeper. We were drowning financially. Every month, the mortgage on the house ate a bigger chunk of my paycheck, and with no real help from Joan, I finally had to face reality. I couldn't do it anymore. I sat her down one night, exhausted and embarrassed, and told her point blank, if we didn't get out now, we'd lose everything. The bank would come for the house, and we'd be out on the street. I wasn't trying to scare her. I was just being honest. She didn't take it well. She fought me on it at first, accused me of giving up too easily, of always stressing over money. But eventually, when the numbers didn't lie and the foreclosure notice became more than just a threat, she relented. Her parents were quick to step in, or I should say, her mother was quick to offer a solution. "You can stay in our guest room," she said like she was doing me a favor. I swallowed my pride and said thank you, even though everything inside me screamed don't do this. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but what choice did I have? We packed what we could fit into the car and moved into the guest room at the back of their house. From day one, it felt like I didn't belong. Her dad didn't hide how he felt about me. One evening, while Joan was in the kitchen, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm only putting up with you because of my daughter." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the energy to fight. I was already carrying too much, trying to sell the house, dealing with agents who offered insulting prices, paying legal fees just to stop the bleeding, and still covering everyday expenses while living under a roof where I felt like an unwanted stray dog. Joan didn't say much. She moved through the days like nothing had changed. Meanwhile, I was doing mental math every morning, wondering how much longer I could keep this charade up before something inside me cracked. But I didn't show it. I kept a straight face, kept smiling politely, kept saying thank you, and yes, sir, like a man slowly shrinking into himself just to avoid one more fight. I was frustrated, humiliated, but I couldn't afford to break down. Not yet. One Saturday morning, I'd been up early, painting Joan's father's garage. It felt like it needed a fresh coat of paint, and I figured, why not? Later, I figured I'd come in, shower, have breakfast. But when I walked into the kitchen, I noticed the plates from breakfast were already in the sink. Joan, her mom, and her dad had eaten. I was about to grab some leftover toast when Joan walked in. She didn't even look at me directly. She just walked over to the kitchen counter and slid a manila envelope across it. I was confused. I opened it slowly, thinking maybe it was paperwork that came in about the case I had or something to do with the house we placed on the market. But the second I saw the header, my stomach dropped. Divorce petition. I must have stood there frozen for a good 30 seconds, just staring at the page, trying to make sense of the words. I looked up at her. Why? I asked. That's all I could manage. She didn't flinch. She just turned around and walked out. I could hear her mom and dad talking in the living room. Nobody looked back at me. That night, I didn't sleep because I was trying to figure out what I had done wrong. Nothing that would have prepared me for this. The next morning, I signed the papers. Not because I was okay with it, but because I didn't know what else to do, and I have no desire to drag this on in the court of law. I felt like my entire life had just been yanked out from under me. I packed a small bag and left. I had no plan. I called my friend, and thank God, he picked up. He told me to crash on his couch until I figured things out. And that's how 8 years of marriage ended for me. That week was one of the longest of my life. A week later, I texted Joan about how to get my tools. She told me she and her parents had gone on a trip, but gave me instructions on how to go about it. I drove over to their house. I had the code she sent and used the spare key from the lockbox to let myself in. I made my way to the garage, picked up my toolbox, some old camping gear, and a few things I'd left behind in the rush. That's when I noticed it. A small pile of unopened mail on the dining table. It looked like it had been tossed aside, like junk they didn't bother dealing with. Normally, I wouldn't go through anything, but one envelope caught my eye. It had my full name in bold letters. I picked it up. The return address was from a private financial management firm. That alone was weird. I'd never worked with them, never contacted them. I opened it, and inside was a formal letter. The letter was proposing an out-of-court settlement from her financial manager's office. They were willing to discuss a private agreement regarding the misused investments and hoped to avoid unnecessary legal escalation. I just stood there, frozen. This didn't make sense. Why hadn't my lawyer received this? I took a photo of the letter and sent it to my attorney right away. He was confused too. Said he'd never been contacted. My lawyer got on the phone within the hour and began reaching out to the firm. Over the next few weeks, everything began to settle legally and financially. The back and forth with the lawyers finally resulted in some clarity. The negotiations worked out in my favor more than I expected. I was able to recover most of the money I had built over the years, money that I had once thought was lost. Seeing the final figures on the paperwork was like taking a deep breath after holding it in for too long. During that same time, I found out the real reason she left. I wasn't even the one who went digging. It came to me quietly, through someone we both knew. Probably thought I deserved to know the truth. Joan had been seeing another man. For how long? I don't know. But here's the thing, I didn't explode. I didn't show up at her new place demanding answers. I didn't try to humiliate her back. I just let it be. I wished her well. Not out loud, not to her face. But in my heart, I let her go. Because if someone can throw away 8 years without hesitation, then they were already gone long before that final conversation. With the funds I recovered, I didn't go on some extravagant trip or try to prove anything to anyone. I moved into a smaller home in a quiet area, not a flashy neighborhood, not the kind of place where people ask what you do or what car you drive. Just peace. I started gardening. So yeah, that's where I am now. Life didn't go as planned, but it's mine again. And for anyone watching this, thank you. For listening. For caring enough to make it this far. I'm moving forward. Quietly. Fully. And on my own terms.